Alright, let's paint these with a couple different values, and I'm going to throw some different colors in there, but you can see I've just kind of mixed a few of the colors that I might be using so they're ready. I'm going to start up here at the top and just throw some value in. Grab me a paper towel for blotting, just in case I get it a little bit too dark. Throwing in some color, kind of leaving a little bit of a light spot there, but I mean, I could leave a little bit of a light spot on her nose as well. And even on that cheek. That might have been a smart thing to do, so I'll go back in and do that now. I'm going to have a little bit more yellow. Actually, it's kind of often, seems weird, but you kind of end up with a kind of a green when you're doing blonde hair. It looks a little bit green. So I'm just going to throw that in there now. I'll throw some of this light. Whoops. Just realized I want this to go down a little bit further there. Grab a little bit of yellow for that. It's a little bit blue. I kind of wanted a little bit of turquoise in there. So, and it doesn't matter if the color changes. And I probably won't even put the little pink bands around it because that would really grab your attention, and we don't necessarily need the attention there. And I should be adding some of these little brush strokes with the highlights. If I keep that in mind as I'm painting this, they will just naturally form. Oops, a little dark there. Remember, I'm doing this in 2 tones, so I want that to be a little bit lighter. Don't forget to use the different parts of your brush to get a different effect there. See how that bled in? No problem. Just let it be. We're just simplifying this. So you can see how simple that is. And we're just going to let it sit there. And it looks like you may have a little bit of a reflection there. You can't see. There you go. That's what it looks like. Okay, now that's still drying there, and I am going to, oops, pull that up a little bit. I'm going to let those two bleed together. Okay, now, while that's drying there, I'm going to add a little bit of what we need for this guy. Most of his face is in shadow. I'm going to just add different values there as we're going on, and you can kind of see a little bit of flesh tone on the hand. So we're still doing 2 values, but we're getting more of the local color that we see here. Now on this one, with this orange that I'm going to put in, this is where I've added some yellow and some red so that I can just grab that quickly, and it speeds things up a lot. I'm going to add quite a bit of water to this because I don't want it too stark. And it actually feels just a little bit too orange and too thick, so I'm going to grab some yellow and some water, that mix on the page, and I've got my little stripes there. But that's okay. We're just simplifying this. If we don't get all the stripes in, that's totally fine. because we can. I'm adding the orange right there because I know that's going to be in shadow. Now this picture has black and blue there. I'm going to simplify that a little bit and just do 2 different shades of blue. So and if they're close to each other, that's just fine. And I'm going to grab some tan for this because I want that to feel a little bit different. Because I have that tan down there, while this is still drying, I'm going to put some of this tan up here just for a little bit of continuity. Now that yellow has bled into his face and it's still wet, so I'm just going to blot it and throw that back down. Almost looks like the shadow already, doesn't it? Okay, let's move back to little twinkle toes up here. Put that where you can see it. And I told you that hair is kind of green, blonde hair. If you use yellow, it just doesn't look right. I've got a little bit of yellow there, but you kind of end up with a little bit of a greeny brown. I'm going to add the shadows here, not quite dark enough. If I start and it doesn't quite work, I can just go back and add more. I can see those shadows right there. I'm going to blot that finger. Thought it was dry, it wasn't. And then that. Sometimes I just get in a hurry. That's a little bit too much water there. Okay, now for the shadows on my face. Now that we've got a little bit of color, I'm going to use, you can see that's just a little bit more reddish. I don't want the shadows to appear black, so if I just added a dark brown to everything, they wouldn't have very much life. But I can add these shadow colors in here. And I know right now it looks a little bit scary, but when it dries, it will work. We're going to also use some purple. I need to suck some of that up there. A little bit of purple there. Let's see. And let's get these little hands here. And some little bit purple. It's looking a little bit funny, but we just got to keep going, not stop going, I just messed it up. Just keep going. See what happens. Finish this out. This is all in shadow. More red. That part of the hand is in shadow. And while we have this color, we're just going to come here and add a little bit of shadow where we see it. Remember, this isn't meant to be a detailed you know, portrait. This is just a quick two-value painting. I'm just going to grab some more of my, I need a darker shadow color in that blue, but remember, just adding brown to everything doesn't always work. It doesn't give you a lot of depth. So I'm going to mix that color there. See if I like that, and I do. So if these bleed in, that's just fine. The key to this is getting the shape that you see, not the shape you think it is. So I'm not doing all of that because I want that to be a lost and found line. I want that to be a little bit of a soft edge, so I'm going to use my brush, the edge of my brush there. Lost that. Okay. And I'm just going to include that shadow there. The pink is cute when she wears it, but it's just too much on this. Okay. Sometimes I have a hard time speaking and painting at the same time. Okay, let's get this down here. I don't want to obliterate all my little light areas. And I have less paint on the brush, so I'll come back and do that soft shape. Now I want to make sure that I have this edge the way I want it here. You can see if I go over something more than once and it's dry, it gets a little bit darker each time. Gives a little bit more definition. Blot that just a bit, and then I can get a really soft edge there. Get these soft things going here. And I have to look at the difference between the shadow shape and the color. Not the same thing, right? Okay, there's our little miss. And I will likely want to put, if I had put some background color on it first, that would have been a little bit easier. I'm going to at least add a little something so she's not floating. She's leaning against the couch in the photo, but in my painting, it looks like she could be standing there, so that'll work. Oops, don't get away from me. Too wet. And where's my shape? Shadow's coming back here. where my shadow ends on the foot is where my shadow needs to be on the ground below it. And I don't want any white between that because that is in shadow. And I can't just do a straight line here. I've got to follow the contour if I want it to look like it goes behind. Now you can see that I could add more detail here, but when we're simplifying by just getting the lights and shadows, you get something of what would be there. Okay, let's work on our construction worker. There's not much on this helmet. I'm going to add, whoops, too dark. Get some of that off. Add a little bit there. And then we'll get the shadow of what's below it. Okay. I'm going to add some of my browns there. He's got that strap coming down. The light is hitting that. It's not the same color, but that's okay. I don't care at this point because I'm just doing 2 levels. And it's kind of hard to see the shape of his face, but I think that's it. And then this is a soft shadow there. Up to the neck. I'm adding a little bit of blue here. It's going to blend and bleed together, but I think that will just add a little bit of depth there. Now, I have some blue on that shirt. Kind of a bluey purpley. And that shirt actually comes above there in a lighter color, but I didn't get that first part in. I'm not going to worry about it now. Get this side of the sleeve. It's coming down. And then this part is in shadow. Looks like we have a couple of shadows there. Okay, now because I have other colors on my palette, I can just keep mixing that around, and it colors slightly different, so I have just a little bit different shade to use down here. And that works fine. Hand is casting a shadow. And then that's casting a shadow. It's really interesting when you just start looking at shapes, what you come up with and what it ends up looking like. Now I didn't get that last part there, but I wouldn't worry about it because when I put a background there, that'll feel like the light is hitting that part of the leg. Now we're going to get some of that orange. And I need a little bit more red in there. When you have that orange in the shadow, it kind of almost feels like it has a little bit of red in it. I'm going to start over here because I've got my brush loaded. I don't feel like that cast shadow right there. It's got a cast right there. It does have a few little marks here. This is a little bit lighter. That more soft orange. It looks like I need more shadows in there. I missed that with my blue. I'll have to go back and grab that. Now let's throw some of these. Oh, not dark enough. Darks there and here. Let's make that a little bit darker. And let me grab that blue shadow that I missed. Don't be tempted to just outline everywhere. Pay attention to the shadow shapes. Now let's give him some, oops, let me mix a little bit of a warmer brown. I'm going to blot that and dry brush on that ground. I'm using a bit of a horizontal stroke here to simulate the ground there. Boy, I talk it starts and stops when I'm painting, don't I? Okay, I'm going to put a shadow on that ground. The ground has a brownish tint to it, but also some of that blue from his pants will be reflecting on there. And if I add just a touch of blue in there, then I think that'll give me a nice good shape. I don't want that shadow to be too dark. Uneven ground, so it's kind of a funky shape there. And the shadow will be lighter as it gets farther away from him. Okay, so there we have it. Simply Paint. And you can even try it without your pencil marks and do really small ones and see what you can come up with. If I was going to do this bagpipe here, I might go like this. Let's see, let's get that where you can see it. Face, hat. I know I'm going to have some bagpipes here. We'll get that there just to help give me a feel. It is so complicated that I keep wanting to complicate things. I need to simplify. Okay, simplify, simplify. I think I'm in a complicated mood. Just want to get these big shapes in here. So simplifying. About halfway down. Nope, his hands are higher than halfway. So as I do this, I'm going to start there. I'm going to really simplify this color. So about halfway up is here, but the hands are farther than that up. Still wet, so I'm going to have a little bit of bleeding. It's okay. If this is tiny enough, it's just going to add some interest. And that's what we're trying to do, is make an interesting small figure shape, right? Sometimes when you see a photo, it's kind of hard to tell what it is you're seeing, isn't it? Just throwing in a few of those shapes. So, a little tiny figure out in the background. I think you might get the gist of what and who this is. We'll see by the time I'm done if you do. When you have a shadow from something straight landing on something that is round or like a cylinder, like his legs, then it curves like that. So, because these socks are an important part of this person, I am throwing those in. And I'm going to come back and get a little bit of a face there. It looks like most of that bled. Some of that down there. Okay, so tiny little Piper. Now I can add this. When you have nice lights and shadows on a person, you're also going to have those shadows on where they are standing. So I want to make sure you get that there. Okay, really simple, not detailed, but if this was in the background, it would work just great. There we go.